Okay, let's dive right into this explainer where we are going to completely dismantle the traditional way engineering leaders calculate outsourcing costs. For years, this decision felt super straightforward, right? You look at a spreadsheet, you see a massive discount attached to some distant geography, you multiply that by your headcount, and bam, you present this glowing cost-benefit analysis to the board. But as anyone who's actually built modern software will tell you, that initial spreadsheet calculation, it's a dangerous illusion. Today, we're talking about the total cost of ownership and exactly why the rate card is no longer the king of the conversation.
We are seeing this massive industry-wide awakening right now. Think about it. Just 5 years ago, a whopping 70% of US companies chose their outsourcing vendors based primarily on cost. Fast forward to 2026, and that number has literally plummeted to 34%. That is a huge drop. It completely proves that the old spreadsheet math, just multiplying a cheap hourly rate, has totally stopped working out there in the real world.
The reality is, basic math ignores how modern software is actually built. Why? Because, well, spreadsheets don't write code. When you optimize solely for that hourly rate, you're deliberately turning a blind eye to things like time zone overhead, rework cycles, and coordination friction. It ignores this compounding productivity gap that turns those brilliant on-paper savings into absolute chaos in practice.
Section 1. Nearshore versus offshore. It's about time, not geography.
To understand why this shift is happening, we've got to redefine our terms here. The fundamental operational constraint between the two models has shifted away from borders and toward the clock. With nearshore, we aren't talking about geography anymore. We're talking about temporal proximity. A nearshore team in Latin America, like Costa Rica, for example, gives you 6 to 8 hours of overlap with Pacific Standard Time. That means your product manager can jump on a daily stand-up, clarify requirements in real time, and get pull requests reviewed that very same afternoon while still capturing 40 to 60% savings. Now compare that to offshore. With markets like India housing 5.8 million tech professionals, you get unmatched scale, follow-the-sun continuity, and massive hourly savings of 60 to 80%. But they are 12.5 hours ahead of PST. So the real question isn't where they are, it's when they are. Nearshore gives you real-time agile velocity, while offshore provides massive scale.
Section 2. The collaboration tax. What the rate card hides. So if offshore offers up to 80% hourly savings, why on earth are companies abandoning it for nearshore? Well, it comes down to a hidden financial drain that no vendor will ever put in their proposal. We call it the collaboration tax. It's the aggregate, measurable cost of time zone gaps, asynchronous overhead, rework cycles, and coordination friction. You are absolutely not going to see this line item on your monthly invoice, but I guarantee you will feel it in your project retrospectives. This tax is the exact reason why Nearshore's apparent premium, that higher upfront hourly rate, shrinks down to near parity with offshore once the project actually starts running.
Let's map out how this builds a massive roadblock in your day-to-day operations. Imagine the 24-hour feedback loop. Your US team has a 9 a.m. stand-up. Your offshore team isn't there. It's 9:30 p.m. for them. So you send your decisions asynchronously. They wake up, they implement things based on your written notes, and they respond by 5 p.m. their time the next day. Then your US team wakes up and reads that response at 4:30 a.m. the following day. Do you see what just happened there? A simple 5-minute conversation, maybe just clarifying a button color or an API endpoint, literally balloons into a painful 48-hour delay. And those delays? They snowball quickly into 4 critical hidden costs. First, it starts with miscommunication rework, which, by the way, the Project Management Institute notes is the #1 driver of budget overruns. Engineers are basically forced to build against their best guess of ambiguous specs. Then you get hit with those 24-hour feedback delays. Because of this, your highly paid US senior engineers end up spending half their week writing exhaustive specs and managing handoffs instead of actually coding. Add in expensive travel and 4 to 6 weeks of billing before the team even reaches full productivity, and suddenly those advertised offshore savings shrink dramatically.
Section 3. The 2026 shift. Cost is no longer the primary driver.
This brings us to a critical realization that is reshaping the entire industry. The market has completely figured out that the cheapest rate frequently produces the most expensive project. Just check out the numbers from the Deloitte 2024 Global Outsourcing Survey. A massive 67% of organizations now prioritize business outcomes over cost savings. Why? Because if you don't actually deliver the product on time and at the expected quality, an 80% hourly discount means absolutely nothing. 42% are out there hunting for specialized talent, and 35% are focused purely on meeting escalating customer demands. The industry is officially over the rate card illusion. $78 billion. Let that number sink in. That is the staggering additional contribution Nearshore Outsourcing is projected to add to Latin American and Caribbean export industries beyond 2025, according to the Inter-American Development Bank. This isn't some temporary buzzword. This is surging foreign direct investment building massive enterprise-scale talent pipelines for U.S. companies that simply want better software development outcomes.
Section 4, where each model actually wins.
Now, I want to be super clear here. This is not about declaring one model inherently better than the other. Both have incredibly legitimate use cases. The deadly mistake is applying offshore economics to a nearshore workload, or vice versa. Nearshore dominates when you need real-time collaboration and iterative speed. We're talking agile product development, customer-facing integrations, or modernization projects where the architectural decisions are constantly evolving. But when it comes to massive scale and 24/7 continuity, offshore is totally unmatched. If you're executing large-scale QA automation, infrastructure monitoring, or scaling rapidly with completely frozen requirements, offshore delivers value that nearshore just can't touch at that price point.
Section 5, the 3-question decision framework.
Let's get into the exact diagnostic framework you should be using to evaluate your next vendor based on total cost of ownership, instead of just an arbitrary hourly rate. Question number 1. How frozen are your requirements? You have to answer this brutally honestly. If your specs are perfectly locked in and comprehensive, offshore is incredibly cost-effective. But if your requirements are evolving weekly based on user feedback or leadership pivots, offshore is going to create compounding friction that completely destroys your ROI. Question number 2. How much real-time collaboration does your team actually need? Seriously, count the interactions. If your US team needs to speak directly to the developers daily to clarify points or iterate, Nearshore is the only model that won't cripple your agile velocity. But if you really only need twice-a-week structured reviews, offshore can absolutely work. And finally, question 3. Are you optimizing for speed or for scale? Speed to market absolutely favors the temporal alignment of Nearshore. Removing that 24-hour feedback loop accelerates every single iteration. Conversely, if you need to execute a massive 50-person QA test suite overnight while your US team is fast asleep, that kind of scale definitely belongs in India. But wait, what if you need both? While the absolute highest performing engineering organizations combine both deliberately, they leverage hybrid strategies like Bay1's tri-location delivery model to get the best of both worlds. They let nearshore teams own the iterative product development and customer-facing work, while the offshore teams handle the QA automation, the monitoring, and the massive scale execution. You literally don't have to choose between speed and scale if you architect your teams correctly. I want to leave you with this final, truly provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. What is the actual cost of your cheapest offshore hourly rate once the collaboration tax is fully paid? Take a really hard look at your latest project retrospectives. Look at the delays, the rework, the burnout of your top senior engineers. Were the savings on that initial rate card actually worth the reality of the delivery? Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope this framework helps you build a much smarter, more effective global delivery strategy.
Thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Check out the next video on this topic, or subscribe to our channel to keep up with our latest explainer videos, live webinars, and other insights into technology solutions.